I must confess that it was my fault. I believed that because you'd rejected me, you'd reject him, and I could not bear that. I was jealous of you, Cecilia. It's hard for me to admit, even more so now after what you were trying to do tonight. There I was, stuck in my intolerable parents' house when someone like you with no magical ability, was out here, sorting it all out for us. Cecilia continued to stare at Sirius as he got to his feet and began to pace across to where his memory had come to life a few moments ago, and she watched him in silence, trying to piece together the information she had just seen and heard. Remus loved her? And against the odds, you took this all on. Sirius continued to pace, his tempo of voice matching his gait. I still can't believe that Dumbledore let you. And you coped with the things you faced. Sirius was jealous of her? And there I was, hidden away so the Ministry wouldn't find me, left to hear about how marvelous you were, and how you were going to be Harry's salvation. As he got into his stride, as the bitter floodgates opened, Cecilia shuffled and turned away from him. How long before she died? She wondered vaguely. How long before her cells broke open, causing tissues to fail, causing organs to cease functioning? How long until the biochemical reactions taking place in her ordinary magicless body ceased to have a pathway? It was happening already. Already her feet and hands felt like ice, her circulation was diminishing. Already her body felt as if her blood was molten rock, coursing through her body, her nerves feeling prickly and oversensed, and her brain, it seemed, was being pared away layer by layer. Couldn't do anything to save Henrietta. Sirius was now staring at her, as if waiting for a response. Cecilia looked at him and forced a smile. She seemed like a lovely girl, from what I could tell. She was wonderful. Sirius knelt beside her, his eyes glazing over as if recalling her loveliness. I didn't love her, I never did. She was in love with me, or thought she was. I broke her heart. And she chose to live my life. Such a waste. He glanced at Cecilia, who found herself nodding. Nothing wrong with my life, she qualified quickly. We continued to go out when she went to live with her aunt. She got a job working in an office, Sirius continued. It was so far beneath her, she could have been an error. She had talent. And then she decided to do it officially. Cecilia nodded again, recalling Remus's memory, when Lily had told her about Harry. She looked at Sirius, the expression on his face revealing an inner desperation, regret, Cecilia knew, for things that he could not change. Then we began to have Rose because I couldn't accept her, and one day I flipped and declared her misborn. I never saw her again. But then she met Regulus looking like me. And, well, you know the rest. But Sirius went to find her, like at school. So he had gone to find her, not to turn her over. You didn't kill her, Sirius, said Cecilia, looking at him empathetically. No. I did not put my hands to her, but I'm the reason that she's dead. 22. It's no age. Sirius turned away from Cecilia, and she was sure that she had glimpsed a tear sparkle in his eye. Her life had been in danger since our third year when she followed us out of the castle. Snape saw her and followed her. If he hadn't diverted Remus, he would have killed her. And it was a lucky escape for him too. Remus chased him up into the Homping Willow. Oh, how we laughed, he added bitterly, looking back at Cecilia. It was from then on he worked on the Wolfsbane potion, making it perfect for him. Apparently something to do with each wizard being slightly different, which had made the batch he'd taken that night weaker than usual. Genetics, Cecilia murmured, thinking about Snape's approach to the research. So he had known all about genes. Differences, just by another name. She turned her head away and looked at the foot of the piano. Her head was throbbing now, like the worst hangover. Her chest felt as if the very air in the shack was caustic, and she could not stop the hot tears that the agony was causing her from coursing down her cheeks. As the wave of tortuous agony washed away, she realized that Sirius was touching her shoulders, and she looked at him angrily. Don't, she said, shuffling out of his grip and gesturing towards the door. Can we get out of here yet? Until the moon sets, that would be suicide, snapped back Sirius, getting to his feet. Like you were attempting tonight. Yes, replied Cecilia, her voice fainter and choked. Suicide. I planned on never coming back, Sirius. It was for the best. Why? Sirius moved in front of her, his face a mask of shock. That sounds like defeatist talk. Yes, agreed Cecilia, nodding slowly. Everything I had to live for had gone. The best I could hope was that the people who I was supposed to be working for could be saved. She looked away. Even to her, it sounded martyr-like, and stupid. You were going to give up your own life for us. Cecilia nodded. But even that I managed to mess up. You were right, Sirius. Not about Miles being stupid, but I am. She raised her hand defensively as Sirius approached her, as if to comfort her. Just don't leave me alone, she added sharply, and he nodded in acquiescence. I suppose you are within your rights to say that after how I treated you, he added, getting to his feet, and Cecilia watched as he moved towards the window, looking out of it. More time passed. And now, with supreme effort, Cecilia dragged herself to her feet and stood to her full height. Nothing could describe the pain she was feeling now, only that her will was coming from her realization that there were not many minutes of her life left. I love him, Sirius, Cecilia declared, forcing her head to look at him. I love him still. I would have accepted him. I wish he'd have told me and given me the chance. She trailed off as Sirius approached her, taking in her more feeble appearance, and, as her knees buckled, he caught her just in time, allowing her to rest against the dusty floor again, looking her up and down as she coughed again, and she pushed him away forcefully. I could have learned how to make wolfspan, Cecilia added, swallowing the fluid that she knew would contain blood. Hush now, he chided as Cecilia fought to retain their distance. He must not know she was dying, she told herself as the sensation of her blood hemorrhaging her arteries hit her like a wave. But Sirius had refused to be swayed from the topic of her health. We can only wait until the morning, and then you can tell him yourself. You must rest, he added, trying to get closer to her. Stop pretending now. But Cecilia pushed him away again, glaring as defensively as she could. If he realized she was dying, then he might do something stupid. She needed to be in control now. At the end. Grudgingly, Sirius leaned against the wall of the shack and watched her pull herself to a sitting position. You know, we could have been friends, sighed Cecilia wearily. We could have been such good friends, Sirius. But it was never meant to be. Your lives. All of you together, you marauders, she laughed at their nickname, each like a ruined portrait. So much potential. There. Carefully Cecilia turned herself away from Sirius, looking at the wall where she had seen Remus declare his love for her. Why didn't he tell me, Sirius? If he had, Sirius replied quietly, turning his head that he had rested against the wall of the shack in her direction, I'm sure you'd have handled it like you always do, pragmatically, sensibly, rationally, logically, practically. All those things I'm not, Cecilia. All those things I found all so maddeningly sexy about you. Shocked, Cecilia turned to face Sirius, trying to hold back a blood-filled cough. If only you'd been a witch. Just couldn't accept you as a mole. Is that what you think I am like? She whispered, leaning her head towards him. Well, you don't see the feet paddling under the water at 1,000,000 miles then. The conversation stopped and her mind filled with images of Remus, sitting at her breakfast table when they'd shared orange juice and toast. Her mind drifting to his face falling grave and him asking her to listen to him admit to his illness. Her looking shocked, but then assuring him that it wouldn't have mattered. Cecilia glanced towards the door. It wouldn't have mattered. She'd love him whatever shape he was in. He was still her Remus. Then she looked at Sirius in the half-light. She pitied him. Sirius had never loved a woman. Cecilia realized that he was staring back at her, and she fought her mind to think of something to say. Why didn't he give me a chance, Sirius? We both would have had our monthly problems together, then. She saw a shadow of guilt pass over his face, and he leaned forward and shuffled closer to her again. I told Remus that you and Snape were. I thought you were delaying the potion deliberately. Remus wouldn't have it, kept insisting, you were doing it for the order. Cecilia said nothing, and she waited for him to continue. There was a pause before Sirius swallowed. Clearly what he wanted to say was difficult. Then you came to the ball with Snape after Harry had seen Snape kiss you when you were asleep. He broke off and laughed briefly, damn near broke Ron's heart, you know. From his approach she realized that Sirius expected her to be angry with him, but instead she began to laugh too. Poor Hermione, she giggled, looking at Sirius's confused face. She'll be heartbroken. Apparently not. Hermione fancies me, apparently. Cecilia shook her head, a glimmer of life returning to her with her mirth. No, not Hermione. Ginny. I was under the impression she fancied Harry. Cecilia raised her eyebrows. Maybe it's changed. Or both. Young love, commented Sirius. Also very complicated. Cecilia frowned. Hang on, Harry fancies Tonks. At her comment, Sirius rolled his eyes in exasperation. Bloody hell, we make a fine lot, don't we? You do know Tonks got Harry to tear the pages from Remus's book, don't you? Cecilia shot him a look. Why? Because she didn't want you to find out what you found out tonight, of course, he said, as if it should have been obvious. Tonks knew something was up with him and dash. Thought it was Lily, finished Cecilia. Of course. It made perfect sense. And tonight, Tonks tells me she has got together with a mole, he added, glancing sideways at Cecilia. A strange old world. She nodded in agreement. A world that was soon to become a happier place, she told herself regretfully. It was just a shame she wouldn't be around to see it. Well, said Sirius, getting to his feet, and walked over to the window again. The battle will soon be over. We'll see if your near-perfect potion works. You stay where you are. It'll soon be morning and I can get you to Poppy, he added, as Cecilia coughed again. She nodded quickly. I'm sorry about Harry, said Cecilia quietly. Sirius glanced from the window and nodded briefly. Look, he replied dismissively, I knew Dumbledore was planning something to do with Harry anyway, and Harry wouldn't have listened to me anyway. If it hadn't been you, it would have been another mole. I made you the scapegoat for my fears for him, and I'm sorry about that. Lucky I found you tonight. At least Poppy can put you back together, as well as whatever the potion of yours has done to Harry. You rest, he added. As Sirius turned towards the window again, Cecilia smiled victoriously in the darkness, as her heart hammered against her ribs and iciness crept over her skin. Curling up into a ball, she threw her thoughts silently in his direction. I've won now, Black, she thought triumphantly. The potion will have worked as predicted, and Harry will have suffered no ill effects. The Aurors will have arrested what remains of the Death Eaters. She closed her eyes and barely noticed when, a few minutes later, Sirius sat down next to her and draped his cloak over her presumed sleeping form. Cecilia moved uncomfortably against it, and shuffled away from it. You're like ice, she heard Sirius say, and Cecilia realized he was holding her hand. You really put yourself through the mill tonight, he added. Well, if you want to put me out of my misery, you can just say that I died of my injuries and there was nothing you could do. Cecilia pulled her hand away from Sirius and tried to back away. No, that's not what I want. Bloody hell, is that what you think? He cut off, looking at her confused. I need to see you better till you can prove to my friend that you mean what you said. That you'd love him no matter what. My word, Cecilia. His voice trailed off. Cecilia forced a smile as he continued, why do you think I wanted to get this off my chest? Remus, before we got here, said that whatever happened tonight, regardless of whether we captured Voldemort, or how we did in the war, the thing he would most regret, if it were the end, was never seeing you again. Even at school he never went for girls, he left it to me and James and watched for the sidelines. Lily, however, cared for him, and I think he loved her for the kindness she showed him, but that was the closest he got. When he told me he was going to ask Tonks to marry him when time was right, I was overjoyed, but she changed as soon as she saw him with you. Sirius leaned back and exhaled, before glancing at her. Anyway, I can't see how you didn't figure that one out. You're supposed to be the genius. When you got to Grimmauld Place, saw how he looked at you. But then you reminded me so much of her. I was drunk, pissed out of my head. I saw you as Henrietta and I didn't want him to get hurt again. I thought if I could seduce you, it might end like Henrietta and problem solved. But after what you did tonight, what you planned to do. Headstrong and independent. Not like the girls who formed round me at school. You are so brave, Cecilia, and beautiful too. Sirius stopped, looking at Cecilia, and through her dimming eyes she thought she saw a flash of regret. She turned her head to look at him, leaning once more against the wall. Well, if it's time for confessions, Sirius, she replied quietly, then it's only fair to admit that I was taken with you. She broke off, coughing hard, blood dribbling down her chin. I never forgot that kiss, Sirius Black, when you showed me to Hogwarts on my birthday. When I'm gone. Cecilia broke off, her head was light and the dimness of the room seemed to be moving at a dizzying speed, and she coughed again, this time turning away from Sirius. But this time, the game was up. Sirius looked across at her and realized that all was not as she had pretended it to be. Cecilia? Moving next to her, she allowed him to roll her into his arms, and she looked once again into his dark, mysterious eyes. When I'm gone, please, tell Remus. Sirius looked her up and down as she spoke, shaking his head in disbelief, before meeting her eyes again. Tell Remus, she insisted with all the strength she could manage. It would have been good. Cecilia? No. Hold on. Panic coursed through his voice as he sought the best course of action, and Cecilia coughed again, closing her eyes. No. Don't give up. Listen to me. But his voice lapped over her like a wave as she felt the warmth ebb away, his words like a buzz, just on the cusp of hearing, dissipating round her. Cecilia did not register Sirius pull her closer, searching desperately for something to abate her demise. She did not notice him hold her body close, trying to warm her body with his as it lost heat, stroking her hair as consciousness slipped away. The world faded around Cecilia as she let go her, giving in to the calm, almost serene darkness as it enveloped her.